Welcome to Salute Your Sports Week 40. I'm Kamenenchev. Drew Brackett back from the injured list. Tom Castleman here as always. Guys, we've got a fun show today. We're going to be talking NBA Finals, of course. We'll talk about these two guys behind me and plenty more. Looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, midlife crisis mode for the Salute Your Sports show as we are entering a monumental number, show number 40. Also going to be talking a little bit of crisis perhaps for the USA men's basketball team. Going to be touching on that as well as the Olympics are right around the corner and things are no bueno.
I'll stick to the hardwood here. We'll go to the association. Suns Bucks NBA Finals series is tied at 2, guys. Bucks won last night by 6. What are you thinking of this series, Common?
Well, my first impression of this series is Giannis Antetokounmpo is unstoppable. He scored 40 points a game against the Suns in the regular season. They had all this time to figure out what they're going to do with him. Guess what? His hyperextended knee is just fine. The guy is averaging 32 points, 14 rebounds, 5.5 assists per game, shooting 61% from the field. Also, only 8 turnovers over 4 games. The Suns don't have anyone that can guard him. Ayton's the only guy who's strong enough, but he's not quick enough to keep up with Giannis. He can pretty much score whenever he wants. Now, I will have a tease for you right now. We'll have some suggestions on what they can do to slow him down later in the show as we talk about the keys to this game. But that's the first impression I have. The second one is the home court. Both teams dominating at home. We're tied 2-2. The road team has yet to win a game. As Tom Castleman likes to say, the road players or the role players play better on the road. Bridges, the perfect example of that for the Suns. 14 points, 27 points the first 2 games, then only 11 points and 4 points, or only 7 and 4 points the last 2 games. So only 11 points combined. Chris Middleton also averaging 29 a game at home, 20 on the road. So those have been the 2 things that have stuck out to me. How well Giannis has played and how important the home court has been.
Yeah, and what a turnaround from last week where Common, you and I were monitoring as we were recording the show when there'd be a Wojbomb about Giannis's status heading into game 1 as he went from doubtful leading up to game 1, the day of game 1, questionable, and then actually playing. And we weren't really sure how this series would look without Giannis on the floor. And even with him on the floor, we weren't sure how healthy he was going to look. And incredibly enough, he looks fine. He looks like, there was a little bit of issues in game 1 and kind of carrying over into game 2. But at this point, he's not really favoring the knee or anything at all. And it's just been a complete turnaround from what we thought that this series was. I mean, we thought that, kind of an easy Suns in 6, given, without Giannis, easily it's the Suns because he's arguably the best player on the court, period. And then even if he's on the court, but not 100%, still leaning towards the Suns in a pretty easy 6. Here we are 4 games in, and there's nothing easy about picking the rest of this series. It's been a thrilling series to watch so far. It's been refreshing seeing a bunch of players that we never have seen on this stage before, and how they're almost kind of taking turns with their moments. We saw Devin Booker, Chris Paul just dominating the first couple of games, both of them kind of petering off a little bit, or rather I should say Devin Booker petered off for game 3, was dominant in game 4 despite him trying to foul out at the end of that game. Chris Paul kind of the inverse, and yet we've seen, Chris Middleton kind of ascending into a new type of role. So it's just been really, really fascinating to see all the different storylines as this series has gone on.
Yeah, real quick before Drew hops in there, I'll kind of piggyback off you, Tom, there. I think what's been interesting is that you talked about it. Middleton struggled a lot in game 2. Booker struggled in game 3. Paul struggled in game 4. So some of the stars have been up and down, except for Giannis, who's been rolling just about the whole way. But Drew, what have you seen so far in these finals with your Bucks doing better than a lot of people expected?
I mean, my stance hasn't changed. I think before the series, I said Bucks in 6 or 7, and again, I think Bucks in 6 or 7 still. I mean, they took some adjustments, but they've certainly figured it out. And you can't, when you have the best, arguably 2 players on the court, you're tough to beat.
Well, that transitions into our next point here. Tom and I were talking about best duos and best trios last week. We were kind of leaning towards Paul and Booker in part because Giannis was maybe going to be hurt.
Mhm.
But I think at the moment, I think the Bucks actually have the better 1-2 duo. I will say this: Middleton is definitely the worst of the 4 stars. I think he's definitely number 4 to me. He's very up and down. I mean, he was great the last game, but he's number 4. But I think he's as closer to Paul and Booker than they are to Giannis at this point, because Giannis and Middleton are combining for nearly 60 points a game this series, 56.8. The Suns guys, 48.5, I think, as I'm trying to flip through my notes here. Also, Booker and Paul are getting one more assist, but they're the guards. Giannis and Middleton are getting a lot more rebounds. So I think right now, given how Giannis has played, the Bucks have the best duo. But when we talk about trios, I think it's about dead even, because DeAndre Ayton's at averaging a double-double, 14 and 14. And Drew Holiday, I think, has been the disappointment for the Bucks. He's only shooting 33% in this series, below 30% from three-point range. So I think at this point, DeAndre Ayton is better. He's also more valuable because he's the only one who can grab a rebound. The Bucks have the edge on rebounding all series long. And if Ayton wasn't there, especially with Saric injured, I mean, Frank Kaminsky is not a good basketball player when it comes to the NBA level. He might be able to beat Duke in the NCAA tournament, but the NBA is a different story. So I think Ayton at this point is definitely, for me, better than Holiday. So I put these two teams dead even if we're talking about top trios. I do like the Suns' role players a little bit better, as you know, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is shaping up to be a 7-game series. I mean, what do you guys think of the duos and trios now that we've kind of seen them go head to head?
Well, I'm going to throw a little bit more love to Drew Holiday than you are, Common, because the thing that I've been watching from him throughout the series is, yes, he has been cold on offense, but the way that he's been picking up Chris Paul and Devin Booker, like in the back of my head, and it's really easy for me to think this because I'm just sitting on a couch watching the game, but what I'm thinking is how much energy that he has to expend and how valuable he is, because he is one of the few guards that's able to pick up both of Phoenix's backcourt on a full court basis. Remember, Dante DiVincenzo, who's a pretty decent two-way guard, is injured, not going to play in the series. And yeah, you have like Bryn Forbes, you have Jeff Teague, you have Pat Connaughton, decent role players to be sure, but I don't really trust any of them to match up one-on-one with Chris Paul or Devin Booker. We've seen PJ Tucker on Devin Booker a little bit, and he plays him kind of hard because he can't really play him fast. That's where Booker has the advantage. So I also think it's pretty even. I think I give an edge to Milwaukee simply because, I mean, Giannis is the X factor. I mean, we look at a player of his stature and we think, oh, if only he could shoot. Why doesn't he shoot? Really, he's a slimmer, more athletic version of a Shaquille O'Neal. That's what his game is actually kind of closer to in my mind, of him just being able to brute strength his way into the paint, get a bucket whenever he wants to. I think that's a little bit more reliable. It puts a lot of pressure on Phoenix's defense in a different kind of way that Devin Booker and Chris Paul do. So I say it's about even. I might give a slight edge to the Bucks, though.
Drew, what do you think? And I have a stat for both of you guys that you guys will love.
I mean, I think the Bucks, as I mentioned, will win the series and win the finals. I don't, they're playing well, and they'll find a way to win on the road.
All right, you guys ready for my statistic and my bold statement? So I'm going to set this up with statistics. For the record, we'll get into picks in a little bit. I'm not ready to walk towards Milwaukee yet, but I'm now closer to that 49% range as opposed to I was about 80-20 before the series started. I'm more like 51-49 right now for Phoenix. But I'll tell you this about Giannis Antetokounmpo. Here are some impressive stats. The last 3 seasons, Giannis is shooting 64%, 63, 63.6% from twos in the regular season. In the playoffs, 53.6, 63.6, and 64% from two. His threes, 25, 30, 30, 33, 32.5, 18.2. So this is what this tells me. Analytics actually favor Giannis shooting the 2 ball. And that's exactly what Tom is saying. Because even if he improves his 3-point percentage, if he's making 35 out of 100 threes as opposed to 30, that's still 105 points. Right now, he's making 63 times 2, 126 So shooting the 2 ball is significantly more valuable for Giannis. And that's one of the keys for me. He cannot shoot any threes whatsoever. And Tom, you put it best. You said it. We're waiting to see what can't he do. Can't he shoot the ball? When is he going to improve this? He doesn't have to do that. Mm-hmm. All he has to do is work on his free throws to show that his free throw percentage is good. Now, here's my statement here. Get ready for this. Those numbers that I mentioned, shooting 63, 64% from 2, the last 3 seasons in a row, this man has done this. Shaquille O'Neal, Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, these guys have only done this once in their careers combined. And guess what? That happened in Shaq's last season when he averaged 9 points a game. So literally no player in the history of basketball is as dominant of a paint scorer as Giannis Antetokounmpo. No one ever. The history of basketball. I know the eras are a little bit different. I'm not saying he's quite on LeBron's level, but I am ready to maybe put him above Shaq, assuming he keeps going. Maybe even put him above Kareem. I mean, you take a look at his points per game averages. He's scoring at a higher volume, and he's shooting at a higher percentage than any of these guys. So at this point, I have to say that Giannis is the greatest paint scorer in the history of the Basketball Association. And I'll tell you what, transition points also matter when it comes to the paint. That's what separates him from Shaq and Kareem, because he can also score in transition. He is that good. As something's going on, Tom. You got breaking news?
I'm checking my phone. Is the show almost over? Are we already into statements of the week? What's going on here?
It's basically a statement. Yeah, I mean, that's how good Giannis has been. I mean, I mean, we've seen this all year. We've seen this the last few years, but seeing it at the NBA Finals, there's just something different about it. It's incredible what this man is doing. It's really hard because I really want Chris Paul to get his ring, but at this point, I find myself here also sort of cheering for Giannis. I mean, I've been blown away by this man.
Oh yeah, he's Giannis. He's awesome.
Well, what do you guys think are the keys? I mean, I'll have mine in a little bit, but what do you guys think are the keys for Phoenix and the keys for Milwaukee if they're to each win this series and win the championship for their franchises, which would be the first ever for the Suns and the second ever for the Bucks since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar way back in 1971.
Well, I think you have to score more points than the other team to win the game. I think that's a major key. But, I mean, it's going to come up to the role players, right? I mean, Giannis will probably continue to be aggressive. He'll get his 30 points. Will Middleton go off for 40 again? Who knows? I mean, he's just inconsistent. And so it could be up to, Drew Holiday, PJ Tucker, Kumpo's brother. That's about all I got as far as players on that team. So, but yeah. I think the Bucks will win.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of counter Drew on this one. I think the key to winning the series is going to make your opponent score fewer points than you. I think that the key to the series is actually going to be kind of in a similar line of role players where it's going to be home court advantage. I think we've seen Phoenix play a bit better. I mean, Milwaukee had to come back from, I believe, at least a 9-point deficit in both games 3 and 4 while being at home, and they were able to do so. But Phoenix looked really, really in control in games 1 and 2. And they have one more home game than Milwaukee does. I mean, I saw a headline earlier today, the Bucks, have they stolen the momentum in the series? I think momentum is just kind of a fancy way of saying recency bias on this one. I think that a series, I mean, another aphorism that we hear in sports more than just, role players play well at home. It's that a series doesn't really begin until a road team takes a win. And we haven't seen that yet in this series. Milwaukee's going to have to take at least one because I don't see them I don't see Phoenix necessarily closing out in game 6, but the pressure is still on Milwaukee to try to come out and try to win because they have to win at least game 5 or game 7 to get one. They can count on game 6 pretty confidently, I think. I think this is also going to 7 games. Are they going to be able to sneak one out of 5 or 7? I don't know.
Here's my keys for the Bucks first. I'll start with the Bucks, then I'll hit on the Suns, and it's sort of the same key and sort of what you guys are talking about. The Bucks, the number one key is for Giannis to keep shooting 2s. If Giannis starts shooting 3s, they're going to lose this series. He's shooting under 20% in the playoffs. Also, Giannis making free throws is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all going to come down to the role players. How many threes are they going to make? Because my gut feeling for the Suns, I'll get into this in a little bit, but the Suns are going to force those guys to beat you. PJ Tucker isn't even looking to shoot the basketball. Drew Holiday is just over 30% from the floor, under 30% from three. Brook Lopez, who's a big guy who actually shoots threes pretty good, also under 30% from three in this series. So it's going to go down to how many shots can Holiday make? How many shots can Lopez make? How many shots can Bobby Portis make off the bench? Pat Connaughton? These are the guys. How they perform is going to be the key. If the Suns are going to try to make those guys beat them, and they're going to try to make Giannis beat them from three. So if the Bucks play smart, if Giannis doesn't shoot threes and those guys knock down shots, Milwaukee's going to win. The key for the Suns is simply to clog the paint and make sure that Giannis isn't getting as many layups as he has. One other key, by the way, also for the Bucks is to get DeAndre Ayton in foul trouble. They get him in foul trouble. The Suns have no one else who can rebound the basketball. DeAndre Ayton at this point might be one of the most important third players in the history of the finals. And he's certainly not one of the best, given all these great trios we've had, but he's more important to his team than just about any third option I can think of, because he's the only one who can rebound. And without him, Giannis is going to be getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound. But the key for the Suns is they have to clog the paint. They have to make Giannis pass the basketball because they can't stop him. That much is obvious. They can't stop him one-on-one. They need two or three guys on him. Make sure he doesn't score. And if he gets in the paint, foul him. I don't know. They Kaminsky in there just to get a foul or two, like I think Pollard used to do for the Kings back in the day. And if you're Phoenix and Tucker beats you, Holiday beats you, Lopez beats you, you live with it. You simply live with it because, as Tom said, you've got 2 home games. Can those guys deliver on the road 2 games? I'm not sure that they can. So that's why I'm going to pick Phoenix to win in 7. It could go either way. It could go Bucks in 6. Could go Phoenix in 6. Obviously, I think whoever wins game 5 is going to win this series. This is an enormous game in this landscape of this series. But for me, I like Phoenix's role players better. We saw Bridges earlier in this series went off, I think, in game 1, or was it game 2? And then you had actually Cam Johnson had a brief stretch where he had a dunk and a crazy layup and a 3, I think in game 3 it was. And Jake Crowder is the only guy who's been in the finals. He's shooting 46% from 3 in this series. I think I look at Bridges and I look at Cam Johnson. And I look at Cameron Payne. Those are role players who can create for themselves. I look at I look at Lopez. I look at Tucker. I look at Pat Connaughton. Pretty much all the Bucks role players solely live off open jumpers that Giannis and Holiday and Middleton do for them. So I think the Suns have more playmakers. I like their coaching better, and I like the simple and tangible of having home court. It makes a huge difference because earlier in the playoffs, we had limited crowds. It wasn't the same feeling, but now this is the finals. As far as I know, there's no COVID-19 restrictions for fans. It's just a crazy environment, and the home court finally means something again. And in a tight series, it does matter. By the way, the Bucks are 20-16 on the road in the regular season. Phoenix was 27-9. They've only lost 2 home games this whole postseason. Milwaukee, against their only really good team they played in the Nets, they lost 3 of 4 on the road there. So I think Milwaukee doesn't play with that same confidence on the road. And that's going to bite them, I think. So I think that's about it. Let's summarize.
No,
Tom and I have Suns in 7. Mr. Brackett has Bucks in 7 or 6, maybe. Maybe
yeah, 6 or 7.
By the
Whatever.
way, Drew, so you're at an Airbnb right now.
Yes,
it looks like there's a shower behind you or something.
It's a curtain.
It's a curtain. So
yes.
Where's
It's
Waldo? Where's Brackett?
Yes.
We're going to move on. A lot more basketball talk, though. We're not done with basketball just yet, Mr. Brackett.
No, Team USA lost a couple of games against Nigeria and Australia. I think they bounced back and beat somebody the other day. But
Argentina.
Regardless, what do you think? Is there a concern for them? Would you take the U.S. or the field for the gold in the Olympics?
I mean, I think anytime you lose 2 basketball games in a row, there has to be a concern. Since 1992, when the pros started playing, in like 10,000 something days, they had 2 losses, and they had in exhibitions, and they had 2 losses in 3 days. They were 54-2 in exhibitions before this last week. Now they lose 0-2, 1-2 after beating Argentina. So there is some cause for concern. And I think Bradley Beal also is hurt, or not hurt. He's having safety protocols. He's not going to be on the team anymore. I think there is a concern because I think that these guys simply, the Olympics don't mean that much to them, especially the exhibition games. I think some of these guys don't want to get hurt for the NBA season. You heard Luka Doncic say that a gold medal with Slovenia would mean more than an NBA championship. There's not a single player on USA, except for maybe the last guy off the bench, that would even think about telling you that. I think another concern is that they don't have a true point guard. In years past, they had Jason Kidd, they had Chris Paul, of course, way back in the day, Magic Johnson. There's always been a point guard. I know Damian Lillard is a point guard, but he's more of a score-first point guard. And they don't have a true passing point guard, and it's sort of like iso ball. But they can win playing iso ball if they play defense. The problem was against Nigeria. They gave up 20 3-pointers in the shortened 3-point line. They cannot allow a team to make 20 3-pointers and win a basketball game at any level. So there is concern. I think it's 50-50. I'm kind of like the NBA Finals. I'm like 51% Suns. I'm 51% that USA brings the gold. I'm going to pick them because they have the most talent, but this is far from a sure thing. I think we saw this in 2004 when a lot of the best players weren't there. They got the bronze. I do think this team is better than the 04 team because I look at Tatum, Lillard, Durant. They're at a more proven stage of their careers than LeBron, Melo, and Wade. And I know that team had Duncan and Iverson, but that was also sort of the start of Duncan and Iverson's decline. So better role players, I think, on this team too, like Draymond Green. I would take him over Sean Marion, even though I shoot like Sean Marion. That's how Sean and I both shoot. And we both happen to make it in the hoop enough of the time. He, of course, gets paid millions of dollars for it, or did. I get paid zilch.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that jumps out to me as far as the men's basketball team goes is that this isn't the 1990s anymore, where the United States had clearly by far and away the best talent over everyone else in the world. Part of the whole reason the Dream Team was formed was to actually kind of grow the brand of basketball across the globe.
Them.
Well, in a way, yeah. I mean, like, something that we can possibly consider is that, like, there are some young international players that we've never heard of before, but that doesn't mean that they can't hoop. That doesn't mean that they can't ball. I think that I don't know if I'd necessarily say like concern, because it's almost been like fait accompli that USA is going to get the gold. They're expected to get the gold. And there are few events where that's actually expected, where it's gold medal or bust.
What was that word you used? Sorry to cut you off.
Which one?
Something Castleman vocabulary. I wanted to cut you off before I forgot.
Oh, I don't even know what I was just like.
I mean, I understood it, so didn't stick out to me.
Please keep going. We'll rewind the tape after the show.
Okay, we'll find out what the Castleman word of the day is. Basically, it's just like, it's actually more interesting as a viewer. You know, of course, I want United States basketball to win the gold, but it's not as crucial. I'm kind of similar to USA players in this one very specific regard, that an NBA championship means more than a gold medal. I think that it's a lot more interesting having other teams now playing pretty well. Like, yeah, Australia has a couple of NBA players.
Well, Nigeria had
course,
7
like
NBA players on the roster, by the way. Most of them were role players, but they had 7 NBA players. In Australia, I mean, they've got Patty Mills, Joe Ingles.
Absolutely.
They've got Dellavedova. You might remember that name, Matthew Dellavedova. So they've got their fair share of guys for sure. No Ben Simmons though.
Yeah,
he's
they
working on
have
his
some
shooting.
good talent. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, they have some good talent on these other teams now, on these other countries' rosters. Something to keep in mind for USA: Devin Booker is on the USA men's roster. Drew Holiday is on the USA men's roster. Chris Middleton is on the USA men's roster. They're not even playing with a full deck right now. So if there is even some cause for concern that USA is losing, they have plenty of good talent coming in. I'm not terribly worried about it. And if they come up short, that's fine too, because we get to see again other teams.
It's not fine though. It's not fine for American basketball. That just makes you look bad.
It's not fun though when that's the case, when it's gold medal or you look bad. Like, I'm actually looking forward to a new normal where it is a little bit more competitive, where it is a little bit more kind of like, I don't know, a little bit more suspenseful. If it's gold or bust truly in that sense of the phrase, then it kind of takes the joy out of it a little bit. It means that there is either a very clear one success or all these other failures. I don't think that's a great way to go about watching sports. So for me,
that's fair. You know who I would want to win the gold if not the USA?
Would it be Luka Doncic's country? Is he Slovenian?
Slovenia. They've never made the Olympics in basketball prior to Luka Doncic getting there, and they'd never won the European Championship, and I think they won it a few years ago with him. Gordon Dragic also on that team.
Yeah.
You might recognize that name. That'll be a fun team to watch for sure. Australia, I think, also has to be one of the favorites for me. Luis Scola in Argentina. He looks like he's about 100 years old. I don't know if you guys saw the photo of him on Twitter. So I'll be looking forward to some Olympic basketball. USA, despite their struggles, about a 15.5-point favorite against a good France team in its opening game. So that'll be interesting to see whether they cover that line or not. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. I do think it creates more suspense. I kind of liken it to like club soccer. I think you have a team like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Chelsea, and every once in a while they lose to a lower level team in their league. The difference though in basketball is there's so many points scored. It's not like one goal can make the difference. So in theory, USA should have plenty of time to make up the points. In fact, they were leading Australia, I think, by 7 or 9 at halftime, and they blew that lead. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think, though, if they don't win the gold, it'll be a disappointment. And I'll tease my statement of the week right now. Greg Popovich, look out. I'm coming for you, Greg. I have some things to say about you. Statement of the week, and they're not too kind, buddy. Not too kind. Just like how you are to the media.
Doesn't have anything to do with coaching. I think that, first of all, our friends
it doesn't have to do with coaching, but Greg Popovich has some issues that he needs to work on in regards to his character.
Well, regardless, friends in the desert say the U.S. are going to win the gold. So, I mean, they're just massive favorites. I think you guys are just.
What's the line? Like, are they like minus 200, minus
500 at least?
Minus 500. Yeah. Well,
they're so heavy favorites.
Part of that, though, is that Americans will have to no American's going to bet against the USA. Like if they realistically, they are the favorite. I didn't say
there was value in it. There's no value in it. But
if we were setting it, though, you'd think it would be like minus 200, not like minus 500. I think part of it is that it's minus 500 because, just because people are not going to want to bet against the USA,
I mean, plus their exhibition games, their tune-ups. These guys haven't practiced very much. They practiced a few days. Australia and Nigeria's practiced for weeks. I mean, those guys have been ready to go. Second of all, they don't know the FIBA rules. These guys are used to NBA rules. The FIBA rules are much different. And these guys are all superstars. They're used to superstar calls in the NBA. They're not getting those calls in these games against Nigeria and Australia. So they'll figure it out. They're professional basketball players. They'll win and be fine.
But I'll say this, when you have Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, Bradley Beal, who's out of the Olympics, but he's in that starting lineup, and you've got Jason Tatum. I mean, you've got essentially, except for maybe when he plays Slovenia and Doncic, every game you have the best 4 players on the court. So
there's no question. But
rules
it was
be
a
rules. There's
game.
Still no excuse to be losing a tune-up game. There's no excuse.
But it doesn't
whatsoever.
matter. Didn't matter.
Didn't matter. Well, it did matter in 2004. They lost to Puerto Rico in a tune-up game in 04, and everyone said it didn't matter. Well, it mattered. They got bronze in the 04 Olympics.
Yeah, I just think with this amount of talent, they'll figure things out and have no problem winning the gold. I mean, it's not a cakewalk, but, they'll probably win every game by at least 5 or 6 or more. I mean, France, they'll probably beat by 20.
One of those games will go down to the last possession, I think, like maybe against Serbia like it did a few years back. I'll say this real quickly, a side note, shout out to Mike Brown, the coach of Nigeria. Someone please get this man a head coaching job. As a head coach in the NBA, he has won more than 60% of his regular season games, more than 50% of his playoffs games. He's made the finals as a coach. He's gotten out of the first round of the playoffs every season he's coached except for one where he didn't make the playoffs. That's like a full season coaching. And he's also won the finals 3 times as an assistant coach. He was the coach of Nigeria, who beat the USA. They also beat Argentina. Like, somebody get Mike Brown a head coaching job. How does Mike Brown not have a head coaching job? All due respect to like Chauncey Billups and like, I guess, Steve Nash, these great players who are getting jobs as assistants. Mike Brown deserves a head coaching job. Somebody please hire Mike Brown, because this is ridiculous. That man can flat out coach basketball. There is no way that there's 30 coaches in the world better than him. No way. So,
well, there you go. We'll leave
my
it
tangent
at that.
on Mike Brown.
We'll move on. We'll move on unless Castleman's got anything to
go for it.
Baseball, guys. I saw the All-Star game was the other night, so we're at about the midway point of the season. So who do you like to make the World Series and win it?
Yeah, so real quick, recap of the All-Star game real quick. Vlad Guerrero Jr. getting the MVP. He blasted a home run that was like practically from Colorado to Chicago. That's how far the ball went. Shohei Ohtani, the big story. I'll have more on him and Stephen A's comments later in the show. But also, he pitched the scoreless inning. He also hit at the plate. The home run derby was won by Pete Alonso. He's made just as much money the last 2 years, 3 years off the home run derby as he has off his rookie contract. $1 million goes to the home run derby. Really surprising to see so many guys pull out. Pete Alonso's like, I want my million. He's the next Bobby Bonilla, getting $1 million in a day. And he's a New York Met also. So that was really cool to see. Great show in the home run derby. Good All-Star game. But as far as the second half of the season, who's going to make the World Series? Guess what, Tom? Out of the American League, I'm going with your Chicago White Sox. Our Chicago White Sox. I'm a Sox fan as well as a Cubs fan. I think this team, what they've done in the first half has been tremendous. Eloy Jimenez goes down before the season. Guess what? He's supposed to come back. I do know that his rehab stint hasn't gone the best so far, but by the end of the season in the playoffs, I think Jimenez will be back to normal. Grandal, who's having a really good season, just went down. I think he's going to be back in a month or two. And they've done all this with all these injuries. They're 4th in baseball in runs scored. That's impressive what this team is doing. I love their starting pitching. I look at Lance Lynn and I look at Rodon. Both of these guys, an ERA just under 2 for Lynn, just over 2 for Carlos Rodon. And Giolito and Cease, both guys have pitched pretty good. And actually right now, Dallas Keuchel, I think, is 5th in the team in ERA. And he's the one proven World Series pitcher. You know he's going to be delivering come the postseason. So in the American League, the White Sox are the team to beat. I mean, I think the Astros are there, of course. The Red Sox are there. The Rays will be there. The Yankees will probably be there. But I like the White Sox chances. And take it for what it's worth. Did you happen to see Steve Stone's tweet yesterday, Tom Castleman?
I missed that. No, what did he tweet out?
So, and this will be kind of controversial to many. Steve Stone, the wonderful play-by-play guy of the Sox.
One of the best.
Analyst, correct. And former, he did the same role with the Cubs in the past, and he was a pitcher, played in baseball for many years. He said he's been around the game for 50 years. He said, no manager ever is better than Tony La Russa. That's what he said. Maybe he's sucking up. The White Sox pay his paycheck. He's got to make him look good, but a lot of question marks about Tony La Russa. I have question marks of some of his things off the field, some of his sort of like old school approaches with the whole 3-0 count where he called out Mercedes. But the man does seem to know what he's doing because he's got the White Sox in first place in the American League despite all the injuries. I don't agree with Steve Stone that La Russa's the best ever, but you got to take notice of a comment like that when it's made, even if it is by your own broadcaster.
Absolutely. I mean, Steve Stone is one of the best baseball minds out there and is especially wonderful to listen to when he makes his regular hits on the radio when he's talking about pitching, which is his forte, a former Cy Young winner. I also am going to go with a homer pick in taking the White Sox out of the American League for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. They're going to start getting healthy, hopefully. That doesn't preclude them from getting any more injuries, of course, which I am feverishly burning sage and waving it around my house. The Astros, though, are a team that do worry me. They have good pitching and they have good hitting. I look at other teams that are in first place. I'm not really afraid of the Boston Red Sox. I'm not quite sure how they're in first place. They have a really good lineup, but their pitching is a little bit suspect. The Astros, they have everything that you need for a deep postseason run. So I'm going to go with the Sox because they're the homer pick, and I really want to see them in the World Series. Also, wouldn't be surprised by the Astros. They're a really dangerous looking team right now.
Mm-hmm. Drew, who do you like in the American League before we go?
Yeah,
to the
I don't remember
National
who
League?
I picked. I'm trying to remember, but I'll
Preseason,
probably.
I can probably find that.
Castleman's quick on the prowl, the researcher.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that because I'll probably end up going with my preseason picks unless I took the Twins or somebody.
I have the divisions here. So in the American League, Drew, you had the Yankees. We all had the Yankees out of the East. We all had the White Sox out of the Central, and we all had the A's out of the West. So not necessarily looking great on our ends.
No, I think you stick with
A's
it, right?
A's will be in the playoffs right now if the season ended. The Yankees are the only ones.
Card.
Well,
the Yankees are 8 games out of the division, 4 games out of wild card. So
close.
Yeah, give me Yankees, Mets. Mets win the World Series.
Ooh, a Subway Series.
I think that was my preseason, so we'll just stick
that sounds
with
about
it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so out of the National League, by the way, Tom, I have a boring pick. I'm picking the Dodgers. I think it's crazy that these guys actually, I think they've got the second best record in baseball right now, which also, by the way, is second best in their own division. And the Padres also, I think, in that division, they've got 3 playoff teams, probably the 3 favorites out of the National League. I do like the Dodgers because they've got the best ERA in baseball at 3.14. And that's with Clayton Kershaw, who's been at 3.39 because of injuries in part. He struggled a little bit. Even though it's a 3.39 ERA. That's how good he is. But Dustin May also is out. They're going to get him back. Also, David Price has settled in nicely into the rotation. I know there are question marks about Trevor Bauer. We don't know if he's going to pitch because of all the off-field allegations, but they've got an abundance of arms, and their bats are also pretty good, by the way, and they're doing all this because Cody Bellinger has been hurt. Corey Seager has been hurt. Mookie Betts is hitting barely above 250. So basically, you can make a case for their 3 best offensive players all injured or underachieving, and they're still one of the top hitting clubs in baseball. So I think the Dodgers, to me, are the team to watch. I do think the Giants and the Padres, who coincidentally are second and third in baseball in ERA, are also teams to look out for. I would like to see the Padres do well. Tatis Jr. is exciting. Manny Machado is exciting. That's a fun team there. But I'm going Dodgers, White Sox, and I'll pick the Dodgers to repeat. I'll be boring. But I'll say this, and I said it on the show, the upset teams have won a lot, and baseball does have a certain sort of luck. It's not like the NBA, so anything can happen. But I'll take the Dodgers over the White Sox in the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, the way things are kind of shaping up now in the National League, there's no guarantee that both the Dodgers and the Padres will even be advancing past the wild card game, with the Giants doing as well as they are out in the NL West. I don't know if that continues. I'm not sure how it's continued thus far, but baseball's just kind of funny like that. The thing is that baseball, the regular season determines the best team. the World Series just determines who wins the World Series. I also like the Dodgers. I'm a big fan of the Padres as well. What they're doing is really neck and neck out in the NL West with that fun division. I just look at the NL Central. I don't see anybody that's looking like a really great team. Even out of the NL East, the Mets are doing really, really well. But how much of that is Jacob deGrom and then a drop off from him to the rest of the team and how they're playing? So, I mean, my preseason was Dodgers and White Sox. I think I had the White Sox technically losing because that was right around when Aloy ruptured his pectoral muscle.
Was
but
that
if
my
Aloy's
pick, by the way? I can't remember if I picked the White Sox or not. I want to say I had Dodgers White Sox in the preseason.
you either had that or you had Dodgers Yankees, one of the two.
Oh, maybe it was
Something along those lines. We'd have to go back to the tape, but I am going to go with I'll stick with Dodgers. Now I'll go White Sox over Dodgers because who cares?
Yeah, why not?
Love it.
The underdog has been doing it, so I love it.
Well, we'll move on to the Open Championship at Royal St. George's in England. Today was the first day. Louis Oosthuizen leading the pack. He shot a 64 6-under. Jordan Spieth tied for second with Brian Harman. Webb Simpson's up there. Stuart Sink, Tommy Fleetwood, Danny Willett, Justin Rose, some of the notables. So, guys, or I think Colin Morikawa also up there. Yeah, he is.
Tom's Colin Morikawa.
One of my guys. One of my mini guys in golf.
One of his adopted athletes.
Who do you have winning?
Yeah.
You're going to take one of the favorites? Oosthuizen or Spieth? They're tied with the favorite, or they're the betting favorite.
I'm taking a favorite, and I'll tell you what. I'll give you one of my adopted guys. I've got two adopted tennis players, Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth. And I decided, I did my show research on Tuesday, guys. So, I mean, I've plugged in a few things for the NBA Finals, but I had this in my notes and in my head, we didn't know what day we were going to record. So I just went ahead and picked a guy for golf in my head before it even started. I had written down Spieth won the Valero Texas Open this year and 5 other top 4 finishes. He also won the British Open back in 2017. Those were my notes earlier this week. I had Jordan Spieth before it even started. So now he's 5 under, tied for second behind one shot back of Louis Oosthuizen. Guess what Louis done? 5 second-place finishes in the majors. A lot of golf to be played. I know this is just after day 1, but if it goes down to Spieth and Louis, who am I trusting in that showdown? Give me Jordan Spieth. I like Jordan Spieth. I think he's plus 300, plus 360, I think, something like that the odds are. That might be a good investment for people because I think Jordan's going to run away with it this weekend, quite frankly. He's overdue for a major. He struggled the last few years. He's got his game back now. Let's do it, Jordan.
Yeah, I liked Spieth as well, looking at one of the favorites, but the name that I put down was, I have golf. I don't know, Victor Hovland. So I guess I'll stick with the Norwegian, who's right now -2. He's 4 back off the lead.
Not bad.
I've heard that the conditions were relatively tame today, so who knows? Maybe a little bit of a mix-up in the weather, and the Norwegian can find himself coming out on top in this one. So yeah, I'll just stick with Victor Hovland because golf, I don't know.
Those are my notes. Too early in the day, too. I don't know what time they wrapped up the round, but I know by the time I got up and checked my phone, it was already over.
Yeah, they're 8 hours ahead of us. I don't know. 8's like Italy. They're 5 hours ahead of us in England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take the Englishman, Tommy Fleetwood, to win this event. I think he's 3 under, tied for 9th. I think he's due. There's also some incredible betting value on him. I think he was plus 2,000. So definitely some value on Mr. Fleetwood. Traditionally does fairly well at the Open Championship. And, it's in England and he's English, so I'll take him.
It didn't work out well for England at the Euros in that same scenario. We'll get to that, I think, maybe here in the next segment. We're almost ready to transition, but I have 2 quick notes about this golf tournament. 1, Dustin Johnson not playing in the tournament, so that makes it easier for others. And 2, do you guys know who's tied for last after the first round?
Lefty, isn't it?
Yeah, Phil Mickelson shot an 80, tied for last after the opening round. So he got his Masters in. I think it was the Masters that he won, right? Or
Mhm.
which major was it? Or was it the PGA?
PGA.
It was not the Masters.
No,
It was the
Masters
PG
was Hideki Matsuyama.
I think it was the PGA. Well,
Maybe
anyways,
it was the U.S. Open.
U.S. Open. Okay, well, he got his golf major in for the year, and this major certainly not going his way.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean,
We'll see.
they don't all go your way.
No, they certainly don't. But I'll tell you this, though. I had some things go my way this weekend, and I was very, very,
It was the
happy.
PGA Championship, by golly. It was the PGA Championship.
Yes, I knew it.
There you go.
I knew it.
All right, we'll move on to the football.
Yeah. So I'll recap our
recap.
Yeah, I'll just recap the week of champions, as I called it last week. Tom and I, by the way, predicted everything correct. 100%.
I mean, you didn't. I mean, the initial prediction, you had like Belgium or something.
No,
I had
Tom,
Belgium initially. Common, you had France initially.
That was in the Euro.
Yeah.
We got the redos right.
We got the redos right. But
I had England the whole time.
We also had
close.
Argentina the whole time. But before we get into the soccer, two other sport notes real quickly. The Lightning won their second straight Stanley Cup. We picked that last week on the show. Obvious pick, Tampa Bay cruising in 5 games. Tom and I also both had Djokovic and Ashley Barty. I think we all had Djokovic when it started, or maybe Tom might have had.
I mean, you had Serena Williams when it started, you guys.
Well, yeah,
Good.
I was thinking between Serena and Barty.
You had the redo picks.
Well, we hit everything on the
right.
redo picks.
Well, sure, because they're redo picks. If you give me redo picks, I'll get it 90% of the time as well.
I don't know. Well,
I had Barty from the start. I had Tsitsipas before the show even started, and he was already done. And then I think I went to Medvedev. I think I went to like 3 other people before I was just like, all right, I'll accept the inevitable.
Just go with Djokovic. He's won all 3 majors this season. Now with 20 majors tying Federer, Nadal, he's certainly younger. He's in better form. He's healthier. He's going to shatter all of Federer's records. My guy Federer right there losing in the quarterfinals. I'm really sad that Federer's records will go, but a lot of respect to Novak. I think if they're all at their best, those 3 are about even, but you have to give some credit for longevity. And part of it is luck, but Djokovic has been the luckiest with his health thus far. So it'll be hard to not have him down as the GOAT if he ends up with 5 or 6 more majors than Federer or Nadal, which it looks like he will at this point. Barty, by the way, number 1 player on the women's side. We've been talking about how no one has seemed to emerge as the number 1. Well, she was number 1 and she won this tournament. So she looks like the number 1 right now on that side. But moving on to the soccer or football, we'll get the Euros out of the way before we talk about Argentina. So our redo Euro picks, I had Italy. Tom had Belgium. That didn't go so well, but those were quarterfinal redos. So we had a long way to go. We did the semifinal picks last week, and I think we both had Italy. Just a crazy European Championship. Italy and England meeting up in the final on English soil. The country was going crazy. In fact, too crazy. There was more fans in than there were supposed to. Some of the fans storming in past security. England jumps out to a 1-0 lead just like 2 minutes into the game. And then Southgate, their coach, screwed it up. And I know that's how they've played all tournament long. They've played conservative. They've played defense. But Italy is too good of a team to just defend for 88 minutes. Literally, England was comfortable defending the whole time. I know they're not as good on possession as Italy, but they got to have the ball at some point. They didn't have the ball at all. Italy completely dominated. It was lucky for England to even get the penalty kicks. And in the penalty kicks, the coach messed up big time. He brings on Rashford and Sancho in the 120th minute. These guys haven't even kicked the ball the whole game, and they're brought on in the pressure situation. He doesn't trust them enough to play them earlier in the game, but he trusts them in the penalties. Also, Saka, the 19-year-old, also brought on as a sub earlier. He was taking the 5th penalty kick, a 19-year-old, despite all the talent that England has. So the coach completely mismanaged their strategy. Italy was the better team, though. The goalie, Donnarumma, was excellent. Italy wins the Euros. They've won 34 games in a row without a loss. one off the all-time record by Spain and Brazil. A worthy win for Italy. They deserve the Euros. After missing the last World Cup, it's safe to say Italy's back. Any impressions for the Euros before we get to the good stuff?
No, not really.
So I'm wearing my light blue for Argentina. We won the Copa America. Lionel Messi, his first international trophy with
Cummins
Argentina.
joyriding around Buenos Aires.
I would like to go to Buenos Aires. The place was absolutely packed, despite all the COVID concerns. Just a wild environment. People in India, Bangladesh, everywhere are celebrating Messi, including me in Illinois. Just a crazy tournament. Argentina, Messi led the tournament in goals, assists, dribbles, chances created. Just about every stat, he was first or second. But the crazy thing is Messi didn't play good in the final. His teammates picked him up. Part of it is that he did play with a hamstring injury the last 2 games of the tournament. That showed you how determined he was to get this Copa America final. Angel Di Maria was the hero scoring the goal. He, of course, missed out on some of the finals between 2014 and 2016 due to injury. Before the match, Messi told him, Angel, this is your final. You're going to win it for us. Well, guess what? Messi was right. Shout out to Emiliano Martinez, the goalie. He was great in the semifinal shootout, great all tournament long. And for me, Messi's the best player ever. He didn't need an international trophy. It's a team game. But by golly, I sure am happy for him. Loading Ballon d'Or number 7. He's just about a lock to win that for best player in the world. 2 more than Ronaldo now this would be. So exciting times. My Argentina Messi poster just arrived today. So next week, this Messi Barcelona is going to be replaced with an Argentina one. It's going to be white and blue. So I think it'll be a little bit easier to see. I think it would be better visuals for my background. So look for that next week on the show, guys.
That'll be nice to see.
So, but more soccer real quickly, the Gold Cup starting up. Do we like USA, Mexico? Who do we like to win the Gold Cup?
Yeah, probably Mexico. That sounds
I
about
don't
right.
think you pick USA in a major tournament. They're not very good. So, Trinidad and Tobago?
I don't think so. They don't have Shaka Smart as their goalie anymore. But I'll tell you this. I would have picked USA if they sent their A team, but just a horrible decision by Greg Berhalter and company. The Americans basically sent their B team to this competition, coming off a CONCACAF Nations League win where they beat Mexico in the final. No Christian Pulisic, no Serginho Dest, no Claudio Reyna, no Weston McKennie. Mexico, meanwhile, does have their A team. I know Chucky Lozano got hurt in the first game, a gruesome neck injury, but they still have Funes Mori, who scored 2 goals the last game. Corona. They've got a really good club, so I like Mexico to win the Gold Cup. But USA has won this competition, I think, 5 times in the past. So they have had some success. Mexico has won the most, of course. But this typically tends to be, since the new century at least, has been USA or Mexico every time. I expect no different this time around.
Wow. Okay. Well, U.S. could win a major tournament. That's the men, I should say.
I'll still take.
Obviously,
Mexico
the women always win. So
yeah, they'll win the Olympics. We'll have an Olympic show next week. I'm so looking forward to it.
Do they have men's soccer in the Olympics as well?
They do, but so the women's soccer is like a senior tournament. It's like basically like as important as the World Cup almost. The men's side, it's like under 23, but you're allowed 3 players over 23. So you can bring in like a vet if you want, up to 3 vets, but it's mostly a youth tournament. It's not actually considered a major international trophy because Messi, by the way, did win the Beijing Olympics in 2008, in case you're wondering. Angel Di Maria scoring the game winner in that game as well for Argentina. So how's that for foreshadowing? Game-winning goal in the Olympics, game-winning goal in the Copa America. Angel Di Maria is a national hero for Argentines like me, adopted Argentines, as Castleman would say.
There you go. Locks of the week.
Yeah, locks of the week. We had an exciting week last week. Not a good week for Mr. Bracket, Drew. Do you even know what happened?
I don't know who I picked, so no.
So
Educate me.
So Drew was out on the show. By the way, Drew, we had a lot of drama last week. I don't think I even told you what happened, but we pushed the show back because after you weren't doing it, and then we pushed it back again because I was watching soccer, and then the lights went out in my house, and I had to find the breaker circuit light to turn them on. It was in like a hidden corner. So we ended up doing the show at like 8 p.m. at night. So
Castleman was about ready to pull the plug. All right.
Close enough. No, just kidding. But anyways, you went 0-3. You had the Cubs over the Phillies. Why would you pick the Cubs? They haven't won a game since 1908 lately, it seems like, sadly, for this Cubs fan. Phillies winning 15-10. You had the Twins over the White Sox winning 4-1, and the Rockies over the D-backs. The Rockies are winning, or Rockies win 4-3, or D-backs win 4-3. I have it written down as wrong. So 0-3. Tom was
I can't confirm the score of the game, but all right.
Tom was 1-2. He had the Phillies over the Cubs. The Cubs actually won the day after your pick.
Why would I pick the Cubs? Or why would I pick the Phillies? The Cubs hadn't won a game since 1903. They were bound to get one eventually.
I know. Those averages work out against you sometimes. Padres minus 1.5 over the Nationals. That was correct. The Padres winning 7-4. And you had the Red Sox over the Angels, and the Angels won. So 1-2 week for Tom. 1-2 week for me as well. I had Argentina over Colombia over 90 minutes. Argentina won in penalty kicks. I had the Suns minus 5.5 over the Bucks. The Suns winning by 13. And I had the Giants over the Cardinals. They lost that game 6-5. Season records, I'm in first place, even 500, 54, 54, and 6. Tom Castleman, 56, 57, and 1. One game under 500. And Drew Brackett all of a sudden slacking at 49, 58, and 7. So, Drew, you got to pick up the slack, buddy. What do you have for us this week?
What are the percentages?
So Common's at an even 50%. I'm at 49.56. Drew, you're at 46.05.
Very good. There you go. I'll go to the Gold Cup this week. Let's see. Jamaica, Guadalupe, Friday night game. Under 2.5 goals in that contest. Then I'll go to Grenada and Qatar. Under 3.5 goals Saturday night in that one.
By the way, Qatar in their last game was 3-3 against Panama, 6 goals. So I have to respectfully disagree with you on that one, but we'll see.
Of course. And then I'll go to the Aussie Football League, the AFL.
Here we go.
Saturday morning, the Gold Coast Suns versus the Western Bulldogs. I'll take under in that game, 151.5.
So this is Australian basketball, or is this what sport
Aussie
is this?
football, the AFL.
Oh, is that that's not like, is that what is it called? Rugby or football? Oh, it's like American football.
Football, except Aussie rules. It's not American football rules. That's why the over-under is 151.5.
And you're taking what, the under or the over?
Yeah, I'm taking the under.
Oh my gosh. I got to look up those rules.
Yeah, I've watched several games, and it's fun to do at about 1 a.m. on a Friday morning, Saturday morning.
Are you up that late? I'm impressed.
Sometimes I am.
Maybe just on weekends, not on weekends.
Maybe just weekends. I'll flip on FS2 and watch those games.
Wonderful. Well, Tom, actually, you know what? Let me get my picks in just so that
go ahead. Yes,
get it in. We got USA and Martinique Soccer getting ready to kick off in 10 minutes. I think I have that third on my card, but I'm going to get it in first. So I got USA Martinique over 3.5 goals at minus 130 on DraftKings. Martinique defense, not too good. Certainly, I don't know any of their players, but I do know that they lost 4-1 against Canada their first game. 5 total goals in that game. I do know this. They also lost to Canada 4-0 at the last Gold Cup, 3-2 to Mexico. Also, they lost 3-2 to America the last time they played them. So I know some of those teams are a little different, but it seems like every time they play one of these North American teams, there's 4 to 5 goals in that game. And America, by the way, only won 1-0 against Haiti in the first game. They're going to be anxious to score some goals and to prove themselves because America doesn't want to have a 1-0 win against Martinique. That'll look bad. And I think they're going to do just that. We saw Mexico rebound with 3 goals after a bad first game against Trinidad. I think the USA is going to answer back. I also think for America, some of these guys are the B team. They want to prove that they're going to make the World Cup squad. There's a lot to prove there. So I think America's going to go for a kill shot. I think they're going to go for a lot of goals, and they're going to do it against a horrendous defense. So I feel comfortable in the U.S. winning 4-0, 4-1 in that game, and over 3.5 goals. And then I'm going to go to baseball tomorrow. A's -1.5 over the Indians at -105 on DraftKings. Chris Bassett, the All-Star, he's 10-2 with the 3.28 ERA. At last check, the Indians are going to throw Eli Morgan out there. He's 1-3 with the 8.44 ERA. A's have the better team. They're at home in this game. They've got the better pitcher, even if the Indians switch them. And they're currently slotted in the number 2 wild card spot. So this is the game that they're going to want to win to keep going. And I'll tell you this about Cleveland. Despite being 3 games over 500, they've got a -16 run differential. So that tells me that Cleveland is prone to blowouts. I looked at their schedule. They've had quite a few blowout losses. This is going to be another one. And then finally, heading to the NBA for my last one, as my light is about to fall down here. Let me adjust. Here we go. That's a little better. But my final pick is going to be the Suns -4 over the Bucks. The home team has won every game in this series, and they've won by 6 or more in all of them. The Suns winning game 1 at home by 13. They won game 2 by 10. A big difference maker is Bridges. At home, he scored 14 and 27 points. On the road, just 4 and 7 points for him. Chris Middleton has played much worse on the road. The Suns 27-9 at home in the regular season, 8-2 in the playoffs. The Bucks were just 4 games over 500 in the regular season on the road. I think this Phoenix team has shown that they can bounce back after losses. They bounced back after losing 2 against the Lakers. They bounced back against the Clippers after losing a game. In fact, they've only lost 3 games in a row, one time all year, early in the season. So I look for an inspired performance from Chris Paul. I look for Devin Booker to shoot the ball well. And I look for Phoenix to win by 5 or more, no problem.
All right, for my locks of the week, Common and I are right in lockstep on the Athletics covering -1.5 runs over Cleveland for all the reasons that you mentioned.
Love it.
Let's see. So they switched out Walker Buehler against the Rockies. I was going to get that -1.5 at
The Dodgers game?
Yeah, the Dodgers game. That was at -135, but Bovada took it down, so I can't go with that. I'll pivot to, let's see, the Blue Jays covering 1.5 runs over the Rangers. You can get that at -125 on Bovada. And then just to show how barren the barrel is for sports, I'm going to go to the Chinese Professional Baseball League. I'll go with the Rakuten Monkeys over the Weichuan Dragons on the money line -125. I'm going to lock that in as well. That game should be starting right around 5:35 local time here in Illinois.
So are we going to wake up for it? Or tomorrow, 5:35 in the morning? Or is that night?
I'll check when I wake up. The game should be about over by then. I'll see what happened.
Wow, so you're going to make me work for this, like Drew Brackett does with the soccer picks.
Oh, of course. Can't make it all easy.
No, can't make it easy.
You can blame Bovada for taking down the Dodgers line. Otherwise, that's what I would have had locked in.
Well, I had about 4 lines I found on baseball on DraftKings, so maybe you should check DraftKings next time.
I think I have to log in to do that. I had all my golf stuff lined up, and then I realized that they actually started playing today, so I couldn't continue my my Tyrell Hatton Englishman beef, where it's just like he's done nothing to deserve my ire, and yet I fade him every time, which is looking really good. He's +2 on the tournament. Oh, well.
I love it. Colin Morikawa, no, Hideki Matsuyama. That's the guy you like, right?
I like Matsuyama. I like Morikawa. I do like Spieth. I actually had another one, and I'm going to say this just because it's fun to say. The Korean, I believe he might be Taiwanese, Jazz Jane Wadananand. I had him at -130 over Daniel Von Tonder, but again, they already started playing, so I can't lock any of these in.
That's too bad. Well, I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be fun because we have stuff all over the place, all over the world, all over different sports. It's going to be fun to tune in to Locks of the Week next week for sure. Statement of the week. What do we have, guys, for statement?
Go ahead, Castleman.
I don't know if I necessarily have any statements this week. So yeah, you guys can go ahead, I guess. I didn't really have anything prepared for this.
I got nothing.
Really?
Go ahead, Ken Jeff.
No statements, guys? What's going on?
I don't know. There's nothing really like
Not much
statement-worthy.
happening.
Yeah, no, it's kind of
A dead period. Well, good
Yeah, a
thing
little bit.
I have two statements this week.
go for
Yeah,
it.
you go for it.
So first off, I've got some beef with Greg Popovich. I'm sick and tired of this routine of him being rude to the reporters. It's getting old, and so is he. Show some respect to the media, man. It's disgusting. Yes, some media members ask him stupid questions, but there's plenty of legitimate questions that media members ask him, and he goes off on them. And it just bothers me, and he gets away with it. Someone needs to hold this man accountable because a reporter asked him after the Nigeria game, he asked Lillard, or maybe it was the Australia game, but he asked Damian Lillard what it's like playing on Team USA after he's seen them get all these blowout wins and all of a sudden they're struggling. It was a legitimate question because USA beat Nigeria by 83 in 2012, by the way. And yes, they've had some close games. Popovich's point is that there are close games, but most of the games they've had over the last, 10 years in basketball have been blowouts. It was a legitimate question by the reporter, and Greg Popovich basically snapped on him. I don't like this whole thing about Popovich snapping. It just doesn't work. It's old for me. So I say Popovich. He's a guy who always has a lot to say on social issues, which I agree with. He seems like the good guy, and he kind of makes the media look bad when most of the time they're doing their job. But speaking of media that are looking bad, how about Stephen A. Smith? Speaking of being held accountable, it was a rough week for Stephen A. Smith. He said that Shohei Ohtani can't be the face of baseball because he has an interpreter, helping him talk to the media. Ohtani, by the way, does speak English, but he wants to be comfortable and make sure that what he's saying gets translated correctly. And I think Ohtani is the face of baseball. You saw all the promotions baseball did. I think they can do more, but I don't think you have to be a super vocal guy to be the face of the sport. I mean, Lionel Messi isn't vocal, and he's the face of soccer. And he doesn't speak a lot of the languages that countries love him in. They love him for the game, just like people love for what Ohtani brings to the game. But Stephen A. Smith also had another mistake this week. When he was talking about Nigeria basketball. He basically, instead of doing the research and looking up the guys, he was basically making fun of Nigeria basketball, saying that, who are these guys? I can't even say this guy's name. And that just looks bad as a reporter. Your job is to get the names right. I don't know that this comment was racist or xenophobic, the Nigeria one, although a lot of people did think that as well. And the other thing about the Ohtani stuff, he didn't even apologize until there was backlash. He kept defending himself, and then he gave like a fake apology. So Stephen A. Smith's got to be careful with what he's saying. And that's my problem with that whole show with First Take and how he's done it and how Skip Bayless used to do it. These guys just say whatever they want, and I'm tired of it. ESPN supposedly is a progressive moving organization. They supposedly are punishing people, but they need to punish Stephen A. Smith in this case, who is like one of their main employees. You got to hold him accountable. So I think character matters, and I think Greg Popovich and Stephen A. Smith have some serious work to do on their characters.
Is it wrong if I'm a little bit cynical that ESPN was actually kind of okay with this because they were able to generate as much content as they were off of Stephen A. Smith's commentary during a pretty slow time? We have like a Jeff Passan piece coming out. We have everybody coming out and denouncing Stephen A. Smith. Well, what are they saying? They're saying ESPN's Stephen A. Smith the cynic in me is saying, maybe they were just like, yeah, loose cannon, go for it. And then if you say something bad, we get some coverage. That's kind of how I'm leaning on it. Where they're probably not going to slap him too hard on the wrist, because this is what he's paid to do. He's paid to get people to talk about himself and the network. Sometimes he crosses a line, sure. I don't know how much of that is intentional. Or if it's almost like to a different
But that's
extent.
part of the problem, though. Tanya
Right.
comments weren't intentional, but that's sort of like feeding into his
Absolutely.
point, and that's feeding into the whole concept. And I'm not going to get into whole racial talk, but a lot of it is ignorance, and
For sure.
Stephen A. Smith's ignorance has to be held accountable.
I think so too. I just don't think that ESPN is as into holding that accountability, because it generates content for them in different ways, and they can come away looking like, oh, we punish this guy for saying what he said, but not really, because he still has his platform and everything. I don't know. I'm more of a cynic when it comes to the programming content at the big four-letter network.
That's fair. Anything else you want to add, Drew Brackett, before we sign off on this show?
I got nothing.
Well, I'm looking forward to Salute Your Sports. Next week, we might have an NBA champion. Hopefully, we get a show in before Game 7 and Game 6. But if not, then we'll talk about who won. So looking forward to that. And I'm going to go watch the USA Martinique Soccer game, because I want 4 goals or more in that game. So everyone,
enjoy that.
Have a good night. Some Gold Cup soccer, the summer of soccer. It never stops giving. Have a good night, everyone.